This is a Fonzie Studio podcast. Welcome to Tales from the First Nations. I'm Jay Idle, and every week I'll share with you a tale and ancient wisdom of the native tribes of North America. I'll be joined by my cats, Dawa and Fonzie, who will undoubtedly make their presence known at some point, so I might as well just list them as co-hosts. We hope you'll enjoy the tales and wisdom, raise your vibration, and enrich your life with us every week. Welcome, friends. Welcome to the 63rd episode of Tales from the First Nations. I'm your host, Jay Idle. As we near the end of February, I wanted to spotlight the wolf. The wolf is such a beautiful animal that was cherished by multiple native tribes to North America as well as throughout Europe. The wolf represents intuition and inner wisdom. As deeply intuitive creatures, they can help teach us to trust our own instincts. They're admired for their loyalty and family protection, for their strong bonds, cooperation, and guardianship within their packs. They're also very smart animals that observe and make a strategy while hunting. They stalk, analyze, and act with precision, inspiring us to be thoughtful and deliberate with our work as well. They, of course, also represent freedom and independence for their ability to find balance between community and their own individuality. In some traditions, they have the wolf medicine wheel, which is a spiritual tool for reflection and growth. The north represents winter, which is a time for wisdom, stillness, and introspection. The east represents spring, which is a time for new beginnings, courage, and purpose. The south represents summer, which is a time for passion, playfulness, and emotional depth. The west represents autumn, which is a time of transformation, letting go, and maturity. These are highly regarded and highly spiritual animals, and I'm happy to share 3 stories with you today. Our first story comes from the Shoshone people and is called Wolf Trix, the Trickster. Wouldn't it be great if everybody could live forever? There would be no disease, no accidents. Life would just be sunny days and fun all the time. Native American mythology has lots of stories about a time when there was no death in the world. One community, the Shoshone people, believe that this happy time was all because of one animal, the wolf. The Shoshone people saw the wolf as a creator god, and they respected him greatly. Long ago, wolf and many other animals walked and talked like man. Coyote could talk too, but the Shoshone people kept far away from him because he was a trickster, somebody who is always up to no good and out to double-cross you. Coyote resented Wolf because he was respected by the Shoshone. Being a devious trickster, Coyote decided that it was time to teach Wolf a lesson. He would make the Shoshone people dislike Wolf, and he had the perfect plan. Or so he thought. One day, Wolf and Coyote were discussing the people of the land. Wolf claimed that if somebody were to die, he could bring them back to life by shooting an arrow under them. Coyote had heard this boast before and decided to put his plan into action. Wearing his most innocent smile, he told Wolf that if he brought everyone back to life, there would soon be no room left on Earth. Once people die, said Coyote, they should remain dead. If Wolf takes my advice, thought Coyote, then the Shoshone people would hate Wolf once and for all. Wolf was getting tired of Coyote constantly questioning his wisdom and knew he was up to no good, but he didn't say anything. He just nodded wisely and decided it was time to teach Coyote a lesson. A few days after their conversation, Coyote came running to Wolf. Coyote's fur was ruffled and his eyes were wide with panic. Wolf already knew what was wrong. Coyote's son had been bitten by the rattlesnake, and no animal could survive the snake's powerful venom. Coyote pleaded with Wolf to bring his son back to life by shooting an arrow under him, as he claimed he could do. Wolf reminded Coyote of his own remark, that people should remain dead. He was no longer going to bring people back to life, as Coyote had suggested. The Shoshone people say that was the day death came to the land, and that, as punishment for his mischievous ways, Coyote's son was the first to die. No one else was ever raised from the dead by wolf again, and the people came to know sadness when someone dies. Despite Coyote's efforts, however, the Shoshone didn't hate Wolf. Instead, they admired his strength, wisdom, and power, and they still do today. You gotta be careful what you wish for, Coyote. I think this is a situation where it's nice to have things a certain way, so long as it doesn't affect the Coyote. Yes, it is better if everyone is mortal, but not my family. It reminds us of the need to be compassionate to others, because what causes them to suffer causes us all to suffer. This next story is a Cree Algonquin legend called The Foundling Who Was Befriended by Wolves. It's an interesting story, but a little dark at the end. The elder of two brothers was very expert in catching eagles. He would cover a hole with leaves and brush, place on top the carcass of some animal, and hide underneath until an eagle settled on the branch to eat the meat. Then he would seize the bird's legs, draw it inside, and kill it. Once he caught a big red eagle, but not wishing to kill such a bird, he let it fly away. The younger boy now begged permission to catch eagles also. The elder refused him 3 times. The 4th time, he consented, but warning the lad not to touch a big red eagle, so the boy concealed himself in the trap. One of the smaller eagles soared down and began to eat the meat. The boy caught and killed it without difficulty. Another settled on the trap, then a third. Those he also killed. Then came a big red eagle. Forgetting his brother's warnings and tempted by its bright feathers, he seized its wings and tried to drag it down. The eagle, however, was too strong. It pulled him out of the trap and carried him far away. His brother looked for him that evening, saw the gaping hole in the trap, and knowing what had happened, sat down and wept. He wept and wept until he shriveled up and became a tiny baby again. An old woman who was traveling to one side of a party happened to hear the baby crying. She picked it up, wrapped it in her blanket, gathered some of the feathers that were strewn about, and hurried on to rejoin her people. In the party were her 10 sons. As the eldest was pitching his tent that evening, she said to him, "Back yonder on the hill I found a little baby and brought it along with me. May we sleep in your tent tonight?" "No," he answered gruffly. "The child will disturb us too much." She approached the 2nd son, the 3rd, the 4th. Each rejected her in almost the same words. Last of all, she approached the 10th and youngest. "Yes, mother, come in and bring your baby with you. He will be little brother to me." So the old woman lodged with her youngest son, to whom she gave her eagle feathers. The years passed by, and her baby grew into a sturdy youth. One winter, the Indians set up their tents beside a large pond and began to scour the countryside for buffalo. Not an animal could they find anywhere. Before long, their supply of food ran low, yet they would not move away, for they still hoped that one or more herds would appear in their neighborhood. While they were idly waiting, the chief of the band tried to capture 2 foxes that had made their dens in the vicinity, but the animals were too cunning for him. Annoyed at the failure, he sent a crier round the camp to proclaim that the man who brought him the skins may marry one of his daughters. All the best hunters went out to try their skill, but failed. The foxes outwitted every one. One day, the boy brought some sticks into his foster grandmother's tent and began to make bow and arrows. She said to him, "What are you going to shoot, my grandson?" "I'm going to try for the foxes." Foolish boy, if the best hunters in the camp can't catch them, you certainly will not succeed. I can at least try. It may be that I can shoot them with my arrows." The grandmother only laughed. She said no more. Unnoticed by anyone in the camp, the boy slipped away the next morning and hid near one of the dens. A fox emerged and wandered away. As soon as it disappeared, he planted a circle of pointed sticks around the hole, then hid again and waited. Not long afterwards, the fox returned, spied the watching lad, and darted for its hole. The sharp sticks pierced its neck and killed it. The boy killed the other fox in exactly the same manner, and concealing the furs under his coat, he started for home. As he trudged along, snow fell and obliterated his tracks so that no one discovered where he had been. Outside his tent, he stopped, glanced quickly around, and concealed his furs in a heap of firewood. Then he went inside and sat down without saying a word. His grandmother looked up and asked, "Where have you been?" "Oh, I just went out and caught the foxes." She laughed. "Oh, but I will prove it," he said, and going outside, he plucked a few hairs from the furs and brought them to her. "You shouldn't pull hairs out of our dogs," she said. "The weather is very cold and they need their fur." 3 times he brought in scraps of fox fur, and each time she declared that he had pulled them out of their dogs. The 4th time he brought in the furs themselves. The old woman gazed at them in amazement. At last she said, "My grandchild, you have been very lucky, but you are too young to marry one of the chief's daughters. You had better give the furs to one of your brothers." The boy did not answer. In the evening she told her younger son what had happened. Loudly he voiced his praise and said to the boy, "Don't give the furs to anyone else. Take them to the chief yourself." At dawn, the people discovered that the foxes were missing and informed the chief, who walked through the camp, crying before every tent, "Who killed the foxes? Who killed the foxes?" No one answered him. None of the hunters could produce the furs, and no one thought of the poor orphan lad. Greatly perplexed, the chief retired to his tent again. The sun had reached noon when the old woman, concealing the furs under her robe, stole inside the tent and sat down humbly at the right of the door. The chief looked up and said to his family, "This old woman has never visited me before. Feed her well, and then let her tell us what she wants." They fed her, but instead of announcing why she had come, she quietly slipped through the door and returned home. "I brought the furs back," she said to the boy. "You are such a poor, wretched orphan that I was ashamed to tell him." Before he could reply, her own son spoke up. "You did wrong, mother. You should have told the chief. Go back now and give him the furs." The old woman went out slowly. Presently, she returned with her message again undelivered. He sent her a 3rd time, but shame still sealed her lips. Driven back for the 4th time, she sat with bowed head inside the doorway, vainly trying to muster up her courage. At last she rose to steal outside again, but as she stooped to pass through the door, the fox's tail slipped down into view below her robe. With one bound, the chief pulled it away from her, seized the other fox fur also, and cried, "Now, which of your sons was it that killed them?" "It was my foster grandson," she murmured. "I was too ashamed to give you the furs before." The chief sat down in silence, and his elder daughter turned her face away in disgust. But the younger girl cried out, "If her grandson has killed the foxes, I will marry him." So the younger girl returned with the old woman and married the youth, while her sister remained with her father. 3 days passed without incident. On the 4th, the youth said to his bride, "Tell your father to build the pound higher and to keep a sharp watch, for tomorrow I am going to drive in some buffalo." The girl carried his message to her father, who issued the necessary orders to his people. He was a wise old man and realized that the orphan possessed great medicine power. Most of the hunters, however, ridiculed the youth, and the boys in the camp pelted him with clods when he started out at dawn for the hunting grounds. All that morning the camp waited expectantly. A party that left before the orphan had returned empty-handed and reported that there was no sign of game. The sun was already low when a watchman excitedly signaled that a large herd of buffalo was approaching the pound, driven by someone he could not distinguish. It was the orphan who, having changed himself into a wolf as soon as the camp was out of sight, had rounded up the animals and now, in his proper form, was herding them towards the corral. Glowing with pride, the old chief shouted to his followers, "Come and watch my son-in-law drive in the buffalo." As the last of the buffalo stampeded into the pound, the Indians closed the barrier, mounted the ramparts, and shot them down. Not one escaped. Then they butchered them and divided the meat and hides among all the families in the camp. Next day, the youth drove in more buffalo, and still more on the third day. At daybreak on the fourth, he said to his wife, "Tell your father to strengthen the pound, because in today's herd will come the biggest animal he has ever seen. That animal he must reserve for me to kill." The herd he drove in that day was even larger than the 3 earlier ones. He did not stay to watch the massacre, but retired to his tent, where he ordered his wife to comb and dress her hair. Then, from behind his sleeping place, he mysteriously produced 2 beautiful costumes, one for her and one for himself. Arraying themselves in these garments, they proceeded to the pound, where the hunters had killed all the buffalo except the giant animal he had specially reserved for his own arrows. He shot this last buffalo, and his wife carried the meat in a precious otter skin to his tent. There she disdained to wash the skin, but scornfully threw it away, for now she and her husband were so prosperous that even an otter skin possessed little value in their eyes. Henceforth, the camp recognized the orphan youth as its leader and promptly obeyed whatever commands he issued through the old chief, his father-in-law. Yet there was one person who hated him, his wife's older sister, the girl who had scorned him in the days of his poverty. If her parents offered her meat from any buffalo he had driven into the pound, she flung it to the ground in contempt. Constantly did she spy on his movements in the hope that her medicine, which was a mole, might be able to work some injury. Now the youth frequently visited a hilltop above the camp and often slept there. One day the girl discovered him asleep and sent her mole spirit to tunnel the ground under his body. The mole did its work so well that the earth collapsed and precipitated him into a deep pit from which he could not get out. Then day after day, his sister-in-law climbed the hill and mockingly threw dirt in his face. In vain he cried for mercy and begged her to help him out, or at least to tell his people. She merely derided his misery. Not knowing what had become of him, his people concluded that he had perished. Even his own wife gave up all hope and went into mourning for him. Now that they had no one to drive the buffalo into their pound, the Indians moved away. Then a wolf that was prowling for food round the deserted campsite discovered the youth and howled. Soon a whole pack gathered about the pit. The mother wolf said to them, "Whoever succeeds in extracting this man may take him for her son." The animals scratched vigorously, but no sooner had they loosened the earth all around them that the old wolf herself caught hold of him and pulled him out. She adopted him as her son and allowed him to join the wanderings of her pack. At night, because he no longer owned a blanket, the wolves made a soft mattress for him by spreading their tails together on the ground. But within 2 or 3 days, they killed a buffalo, whose hide provided him with a warm robe. This pack of wolves, roaming in the vicinity, spoiled the hunting of the youth's people, who set traps to catch them. But the youth protected his companions by breaking the traps. The old chief awakened one night and listened to their howling. "Hark," he said, "I seem to hear a man calling to those wolves." He roused the hunters, who intercepted the pack and seized the youth as he ran in front of it. The prisoner tried to bite them, but they said, "Don't bite. You haven't yet changed to a wolf." Then they led him quietly home, where he settled down again with his wife and people. Every night thereafter, he lay awake in his tent, listening for the howl of his foster mother. For several nights, he could not hear it. Then one day, he saw her skin drying outside a hunter's tent, for she had wandered away from the pack and had been caught in a trap. The youth sent his grandmother to ask for the skin. When she handed it to him, he grunted over it 4 times. At the 4th grunt, it became a live wolf again. He set the animal free, and it returned to the prairies. Thus, he repaid his debt to his foster mother. He now resumed his hunting and rounded up a large herd of buffalo. As the animals trotted over the plain, he called to a young heifer. "When my arrow strikes you, leap over the rampart of the pound and flee to that tall poplar beyond the hill, then lie down and die." The Indian slaughtered all the buffalo he drove into the pound, except the young heifer, which leapt the rampart and fled over the hill. The youth shouted to his wife, "Come with me, we will follow it." "Let me go too," cried his sister-in-law. "Yes, you may come," he answered. So the 2 women accompanied him to the dead heifer and watched him butcher it. "There is your load," he said to his wife. "Carry it to our tent." "Give me a load also," his sister-in-law demanded. "Yes, here is a load for you too. You can use the intestines of the heifer to pack your strap." The 2 women started off with their loads, but had traveled only a very short distance when the intestines broke and the elder woman's pack fell to the ground. While she was retying it, her sister walked on and disappeared over the top of the hill. Then the youth, who had lingered behind, began to howl like a wolf. "Why do you howl like that?" his sister-in-law asked anxiously. Without answering, he turned his back to her and howled 3 times again. Suddenly, a pack of wolves appeared. His foster family. They pounced on the woman and devoured her. There is, seriously, a lot to unpack in that story. But mostly, what was wrong with that sister-in-law? So judgmental and cruel. I felt really bad for that poor orphan who lost his brother, then became a baby, then was imprisoned, then got adopted by wolves, then lost his wolf mother, then got reunited with his wife, then killed his sister-in-law. It's a very complicated family dynamic. But I think the moral of the story should be a little compassion and understanding for others. The mother wolf was pretty amazing, though. She was very respectable, and I appreciate her. I'll end with a story that I'm sure you have heard in one form or another. I found it on many sources, but it seems to be a Cherokee story. But the truth is, there's no actual documentation to confirm its origin. In fact, not only is there no documentation to prove it's Cherokee, but there is no documentation to prove that it's even Native American in origin. Actually, the earliest appearance of this story comes from a mid-20th century Christian sermon. So I'm throwing it in because it is about wolves and because it's a great story, but it may or may not fit our podcast. You've probably guessed it by now. The story is The Tale of Two Wolves. One evening, an elderly Cherokee brave told his grandson about a battle that goes on inside people. He said, "My son, the battle is between two wolves inside us all. One is evil. It is anger, envy, jealousy, sorrow, regret, greed, arrogance, self-pity, guilt, resentment, inferiority, lies, false pride, superiority, and ego. The other is good. It is joy, peace, love, hope, serenity, humility, kindness, benevolence, empathy, generosity, truth, compassion, and faith." The grandson thought about it for a minute and then asked his grandfather, "Which wolf wins?" The old Cherokee simply replied, "The one that you feed." I hope that we all feed the right wolf and spread the best that we have to give to as many people as we can. This is what enriches not only our journey, but the journey of all the travelers we encounter along the way. It's with respect and gratitude that I offer you my blessings and thank you for sharing your journey with me and sharing your time with me on this podcast. I wish you well and look forward to sharing another story with you next week. Go in peace, return in peace, and may you be well. If you enjoy the podcast, please like and review us on your podcast service so that we may grow our family a little further. And feel free to reach out to us in the contact information if there is a topic that you would like us to address. Our first story, Wolf Tricks the Trickster, comes from the now defunct Pyramid Mesa website. It has so many awesome things, and it's only kept alive by the Internet Archive Wayback Machine that has captured the site on November 2012, which is a long time ago, but fortunately they saved a lot of it. Our second story, The Foundling Who Was Befriended by Wolves, comes from the South Peace Historical Society at caverly.ca, CAVERLY.ca. Our third story, The Tale of Two Wolves, comes from the Nanticoke Indian Tribe website, nanticokeindians.org. That's NANTICOKE Indians.org. For more great stories and legends, join me next week for another story right here on Tales from the First Nations. I'm Jay Idle, and I will talk to you next time. Music is provided by my dear friend Scott Brocklesby, and our podcast Image of the Moon was provided by Mark Lawton. We will see you next time. All right, that's it. How'd we do, Dawa? Phones? Excellent. Then I'll share it.